Have you ever met someone just once? Maybe it was 10 years ago. Maybe it was someone you passed at work. Maybe it was a stranger on a bus. And somehow, you still remember them. Not because they were the loudest, not because they were the richest, not because they looked like they stepped out of a movie, but because there was just something. You can't explain it. It's like they left fingerprints on your memory. Now here's the funny part. At the same time, you've probably met hundreds, maybe thousands, of other people. And if someone offered you $1 million to remember their names, you'd probably say, "I'd love the money, but you're asking for a miracle." Seriously, some people disappear from our memory faster than leftovers in the office fridge. You blink, gone. But then there's that one person, years later. You still remember the way they smiled, the way they looked at you, the way they made everyone around them feel comfortable. It's strange, isn't it? And today, we're going to uncover why. Not with magic, not with fake alpha male tricks, not with those videos that tell you to stare at people for exactly 7.3 seconds like you're trying to unlock a secret level in a video game. Please don't do that. Someone might call security. Today we're diving into ideas inspired by Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds to ever explore human nature. But don't worry, this isn't going to feel like a classroom. Nobody brought homework. There won't be a test at the end, unless you count trying to remember where you left your glasses this morning. If you found them on your head, congratulations, you're officially one of us. Now let me tell you a quick story. Years ago, I walked into a small coffee shop. Nothing fancy. Just one of those quiet places where everybody seemed to know each other. There was an older man sitting in the corner. Simple clothes, no expensive watch, no loud voice, no big entrance. Honestly, if someone asked me to describe him, I'd probably say he looked like someone's favorite uncle. Nothing extraordinary, but here's what happened. Every single person who walked into that shop stopped to greet him. Young people, older people. The cashier smiled before he even spoke. Someone brought him an extra cookie. Another person laughed before he even finished his sentence. I kept thinking, who is this guy? Is he secretly famous? Did he invent coffee? Does he own the building? Turns out, none of those. He wasn't rich. He wasn't important in the way the world usually measures importance. He simply had something people remembered. Something you couldn't buy. Something you couldn't fake. Hours later, when I left that coffee shop, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Not because he impressed me, because he stayed with me. That's the difference. Some people impress you. Others leave an imprint on your soul. Carl Jung believed that what makes people unforgettable isn't always what they show on the outside. It's something much deeper, something happening beneath the surface. And the beautiful thing is, this isn't reserved for celebrities, or influencers, or people with perfect smiles and expensive suits. Some of the most unforgettable people you'll ever meet are the quiet ones, the ones who make you laugh when you least expect it, the ones who remember your name, the ones who ask how you're doing, and then actually wait for the answer. Imagine that. These days someone asks, "How are you?" And before you answer, they're already halfway across the parking lot. You could say, "My house is on fire." And they'd yell back, "That's awesome, take care." We're all guilty of it sometimes. Life gets busy, but unforgettable people, they slow life down just enough. So here's the question I want you to think about while you're watching today. Who is someone you have never forgotten? It could be a teacher, a grandparent, a friend, a stranger, someone you met for 5 minutes, or maybe someone who changed your life without even realizing it. Tell me down in the comments. I read them. And honestly, some of your stories deserve their own movie. By the end of this video, You might discover something surprising. The people we remember the longest usually aren't the ones trying the hardest to be remembered. Now, let's uncover the first quiet trait that makes someone impossible to forget. And trust me, it's probably not what you think. Have you ever noticed something strange? You meet two people on the same day. One talks for an hour, the other talks for 5 minutes. A month later, you can barely remember what the first person looked like, but somehow you still remember the second one. How does that even happen? It's like your brain quietly says, "Yep, this one goes in the special folder." Nobody announces it. No fireworks. No dramatic movie music. Just click. They're remembered. Now, if you've ever thought, maybe I'm just not memorable, throw that thought out the window. Actually, don't throw it if your window is open. Some poor neighbor might be outside wondering why thoughts are falling from the sky. Here's what Jung inspired people to see. People don't remember us because we tried to be unforgettable. They remember how they felt when they were around us. Think about that for a second. Most of us spend so much energy wondering, did I say the right thing? Did I look okay? Did they like me? Meanwhile, the other person isn't making a list of everything you said. They're remembering one thing, how being around you felt. It's kind of funny, isn't it? We've all had that experience. You leave a conversation and someone asks, "So, what did they say?" And you go, "I honestly don't remember. But they were really kind." Or, "They made me laugh." Or, "I just felt comfortable." That's what sticks. Feelings have better memory than facts. Let me tell you about my friend Daniel. Now, Daniel is not what you'd call smooth. The first time he met my family, he was so nervous that instead of saying, "It's nice to meet you," he accidentally said, "It's nice to eat you." Silence. Complete silence. Even the dog looked confused. Daniel turned bright red. He wanted the ground to open up and swallow him whole. My grandmother looked at him, smiled, and said, "Well, at least buy me dinner first." The whole room exploded with laughter. Years later, nobody remembers what Daniel wore. Nobody remembers what anyone else said that day. But everyone remembers Daniel. Not because he was perfect, because he was real. He laughed at himself. He stayed relaxed. He didn't spend the next 3 hours apologizing for one tiny mistake. That's rare. Most people treat small mistakes like they're announcing the end of the world. They spill a little coffee, and suddenly they're acting like the evening news is going to cover it. Breaking news: local man drops spoon. Recovery teams are on the way. Relax. Nobody's keeping score. Actually, the people who are easiest to remember usually give everyone else permission to relax too. Have you noticed that? You sit next to someone who is completely comfortable being themselves, and suddenly you stop worrying about yourself. That's a gift. One of the biggest gifts you can give another person. Jung believed something fascinating. He believed we all wear masks, not the scary Halloween kind, although some Monday morning faces come pretty close. He meant the masks we wear to fit in, the mask that says, "I have everything under control. I never get nervous. I never make mistakes. I always know exactly what I'm doing." Meanwhile, inside you're wondering where you parked your car, and you're standing right next to it. We've all done it. Don't lie. I once spent 5 minutes looking for my phone. Guess where it was? In my hand. I wish I were making that up. And the worst part? I used my phone flashlight to help me find my phone. Tell me I'm not alone, please. That's why the comments section exists. But here's the point. People remember authenticity, not perfection. Perfection is actually kind of boring. Think about your favorite movie character. Are they perfect? No. They mess up. They get embarrassed. They make bad decisions. sometimes really bad ones. That's why we love them. Imagine watching a movie where the main character does everything perfectly, gets every answer right, never trips, never cries, never forgets anything. The movie would be over in about 6 minutes. You'd probably fall asleep before the popcorn was ready. Real people are interesting because they're human. The unforgettable people understand that. They don't try to win every conversation. They don't try to sound like the smartest person in the room. They don't secretly compete over who had the busiest week. You've met those people, right? You say, "I only slept 5 hours." They reply, "Oh really? I slept -3. You say, "I've had a stressful day." They say, "You think that's stressful? Let me tell you." Everything becomes a competition, even being tired. By the end, you're thinking, "You win. Please go take a nap." The unforgettable person isn't trying to be bigger than everyone else. They're trying to make everyone else feel bigger. That's a completely different kind of strength. And here's something I find beautiful. You don't need perfect looks for that. You don't need expensive clothes. You don't need to know fancy words. You don't need to become someone else. You simply need to become more comfortable being yourself. Funny enough, that's what makes people curious, because authenticity is surprisingly rare. It's like finding homemade cookies at a meeting where everyone else brought plain crackers. People notice, not because you're louder, but because you're genuine. And the funny thing is, most unforgettable people have no idea they're unforgettable. They're just living honestly. They're paying attention. They're laughing. They're listening. They're present. And without realizing it, they're leaving little footprints in the hearts of the people they meet. Now, that brings us to something even more powerful, because if authenticity opens the door, there's one simple habit that makes people stay in your memory for years, and almost nobody talks about it. All right, let me ask you something. Have you ever been talking to someone, and halfway through your sentence, you realize they're not listening at all? They're doing this. Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow. Meanwhile, they're checking their phone, looking at the TV, watching a bird outside, probably planning dinner. And you're standing there thinking, I could literally say I'm moving to the moon tomorrow, and this person would still say, "That's nice." We've all been there. It almost feels like you're talking to a cardboard cutout. Now flip that around. Have you ever talked to someone who made you feel like, for those few minutes, you were the only person in the world? They weren't rushing you. They weren't trying to top your story. They weren't waiting for their turn to talk. They were just there. And somehow, you walked away feeling lighter. That's a superpower. Not because they solved your problems, not because they gave amazing advice. Sometimes they hardly said anything at all. They simply made you feel seen. And people never forget that. I'll never forget an old neighbor I had. His name was Mr. James. Every evening he'd sit outside with a little cup of tea. Nothing exciting, no big speeches, no dramatic life lessons. Just tea. One day I walked by looking completely worn out. You know those days where your face says, "Please don't ask me how I'm doing, because I might actually tell you." He looked up and smiled. He didn't say, "You should stay positive." He didn't hand me a motivational quote. He just said, "Long day?" That's it. 2 words. Long day. I laughed. I don't even know why. Maybe because someone noticed. We ended up talking for 15 minutes. About nothing. The weather, his garden, how his tomatoes kept losing the battle against squirrels. Apparently those squirrels were running a 5-star restaurant. Every tomato disappeared overnight. He was convinced they had meetings. "I've seen them," he said. "One stands on the fence like security, another sneaks in. The third one carries the tomato away." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled his tea. To this day, I remember that conversation, not because it changed my life overnight, but because for 15 minutes, someone made me feel like I mattered. That's what unforgettable people do. They're fully with you, not halfway, not one eye on the television, not secretly wondering what's for lunch. They're present. And here's the funny thing, being present costs absolutely nothing. You don't need expensive clothes. You don't need perfect hair. You don't need a sports car. Imagine pulling up in a luxury car, then spending the whole conversation staring at your phone. Congratulations. People will remember your car, not you. Now imagine someone who arrives in an old little car that's making noises like it's auditioning for a horror movie. Every speed bump sounds like, "I've had enough." But then they spend 30 minutes making everyone laugh, listening, remembering names, checking in on people. Guess who everyone talks about after the party? Not the car, the person. Because presence always beats performance. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries an inner world. Thoughts, dreams, fears, memories, most of the time. Nobody sees that world. We're all walking around saying, "I'm fine," even when life feels upside down. Then someone comes along, looks you in the eye, really listens, and suddenly that invisible world feels noticed. That's unforgettable. Think about your favorite teacher. Was it the one who knew the most facts? Maybe, but chances are, it was the one who believed in you before you believed in yourself. The coach who said, "You've got this." The aunt who remembered your birthday every single year. The friend who noticed something was wrong before you said a word. Those little moments, they're never little. They're the moments that stay. Now let me confess something. I am terrible with names. Really terrible. Someone introduces themselves. "Hi, I'm Sarah." 5 seconds later my brain goes, "Great meeting. This wonderful human." Why is remembering names so hard? I can remember the entire theme song from a cartoon I watched 20 years ago. But one name, gone. Brain says, "Sorry, storage full. Can anyone relate?" But here's something I've started doing. When someone tells me their name, I actually slow down. I repeat it. I use it in the conversation. And you know what happens? Their face lights up. Because hearing your own name tells you something simple. I noticed you, and everyone wants to feel noticed, not for being perfect, not for being famous, just for being human. Here's a little challenge. The next time you're talking with someone, put your phone away. Completely. Not face down, not upside down. Not, "I'm just checking one notification." We've all heard that before. 5 minutes later you're somehow watching a video of a goat wearing sunglasses. How did we even get here? Instead, give someone your full attention for just 5 minutes. You'll be amazed. People can feel the difference. It's almost like they relax. Their shoulders drop. They smile more. They tell better stories. Because your attention tells them you matter. And in a world where everyone is competing to be heard, the rare person who truly listens becomes unforgettable. So, after everything we've talked about today, maybe the people you never forget were never trying to become unforgettable in the first place. They weren't chasing attention. They weren't trying to be the funniest person in the room. They weren't trying to prove they were smarter than everyone else. They simply showed up. They listened. They laughed. They made people feel comfortable. They made people feel seen. And without even knowing it, they left a little piece of themselves in the hearts of everyone they met. Carl Jung believed that the deepest connections don't happen because we put on a perfect performance. They happen when we stop hiding behind masks and allow people to meet the real us. And maybe that's the reminder all of us need today. You don't have to become someone else to leave a lasting impression. You don't need a perfect body. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to have all the answers. Sometimes the most unforgettable thing you can do is simply be fully present. Smile when someone needs one. Listen without rushing. Laugh at yourself when life gets a little messy. Be kind when nobody expects it, And don't be afraid to let people see the real you, because here's the truth. Years from now, people probably won't remember what shoes you wore. They won't remember the brand of your phone. They won't remember how many followers you had. But they'll remember how they felt when they were with you. That's the kind of memory that never gets old. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Think about someone you've never forgotten. Maybe it was a teacher, a grandparent, a childhood friend, a neighbor, or even a complete stranger who showed you kindness on a day you needed it most. Who was that person, and what did they do that stayed with you all these years? Share your story down in the comments. Seriously, I read them, and they're often the best part of this community. One person's story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And here's one more question. When people think about you years from now, what feeling do you hope they'll remember? Not what you owned, not what you achieved, but how you made them feel. Take a moment to think about that. If this video made you smile, gave you something to think about, or reminded you of someone special, give it a like. It really helps the channel reach more people who enjoy these conversations. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every week we explore timeless ideas inspired by Carl Jung, psychology, and the little truths about human nature that can quietly change the way we live. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be kind to the people you meet. Laugh a little louder. Listen a little deeper. And remember, the people who leave the biggest mark on the world are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who leave others feeling a little lighter, a little stronger, a little more understood. Maybe the next unforgettable person someone meets will be you. I'll see you in the next video.